Make sure you just that you're staring at me. I think you're gonna send me your way.
You I want you to go listen to and hear what the sound sounds like.
That moment, people are like, hey, Lauren, I see you in the
Cool. You saw the pulled up?
Wait, is that the live stream?
Debbie, I'm Rich's sister, but I'm not sure about that. I've heard a lot about it.
Nice to meet you again.
Nice to meet you. Mark.
Nice to meet you.
Shaw, you're all in town from where? Lovely. Friends, we don't need to play with the live stream. We can just let it be.
Very well. My name is Ann Toomey, and I'm going to say a few words today. So, nice meeting you.
That's what I thought.
People who know me in my public speaking usually know that I do it without notes. That I usually start with a non sequitur that is something that I understand, and hopefully through a circuitous route in the talking, you get the gist as well. I can't do that today. I'm gonna use notes. It's probably a better thing, but anyway. Good afternoon, and I am really honored that everybody is here. On behalf of all of the family, thank you. Your presence really means more than what I can say. Whether you travel far or just across the street, whether you've been married for decades or just a short while, we're grateful that you came to celebrate your life. And that's what this is. It's a celebration. It's not as the funeral service. You kicked my butt. If it was viewed as a funeral. Towards the end, Mary was bedridden. So after caregivers would leave in the twilight of the day, I would read to her. And Gideon was one of her most favorite authors. And so we would spend a lot of time John Didion in the end. And I think the reason for that is that, like Mary, Joan Didion left her home and ran off to New York City when she was a young person. And in I think it's the very first essay, group of essays that Joan Gideon published, slouching towards Bethlehem. The very last essay is entitled to be Goodbye to All That. And it's about how she went to New York and then how she left New York. She grew out of being a young person in New York City. And it begins this way. It's easy to see the beginning of things and hard to see the end. Somehow that line feels right for today. Because in so many ways, Mary's life was about beginnings. Beginning of friendships, new causes, new ways of seeing the world. And even as we gather here close at the end of her life, we're surrounded by those beginnings, by the people, by the music, and by the city that she really, really loved. We're especially thankful to the friends of Patterson Park to make this space available. The park is not just a backdrop, it's one of the main reasons that Mary and I moved to Baltimore. We were at a Latino festival. She dragged me to. I was a suburban kid. And she was like, we have to move here. And I was scared to death because, well, you know. And so anyway, we did. And we both fell in love with the place. To begin our time, Natalia is going to play a folk song that Pablo Casals always would start his concerts with. The reason for that was he refused to go back to Spain when Franco was there. And so he was seeking peace and freedom. And I thought it was incredibly fitting to start this with Casals' songs for the birds, not to mention Mary's love for the birds as well. Wait, I got more to say. I want to take a moment and thank all the people who on cue have showed up and helped us. I want to thanks Pastor Monk for being here, for not just Mary, but for me. And on the phone with me all the time, keeping me together. And Saul, who isn't here, but is watching on streaming, thank you for your daily texts to keep me together. After Natalia, Lauren is going to get up and provide a reading from Rainier Maria Roca. That Mary is another author that Mary truly loved, and whenever she would read this, so that Matt will come up and read a short poem of Gary. Then Katya is the steward of Vasculia. Katya is gonna come up and talk a little bit about Mary and Mary's grandmother as well. And then I think Isaac and the grandkids are gonna come. They decided they wanted to say that people would stand. Then there's a photo montage that I have not seen. That's going to be played. After that, and Toomey is going to say a few words about Mary, and I just want to say how grateful we are for all the friendships that Mary had made through it. Through her work at the AFL-CIO and at the AFT, and especially together. And just recognize you. And it was really important that and possible Mary and the work. And then finally Mark will get up and do his thing as a pastor. And I suspect maybe also do his thing as a city council as well. Anyway, I'm nervous and I have skipped things, and I just wanted to make one more thank you. And Amy, the folks, Mary had two incredible caregivers from the Video Home Care who spent the last 10 months in the house. Again, they made Mary's walk home easier. They were true health professionals. And I would really be remiss if I didn't say thank you to them. Also, the team at Gilchrist Hospice, the nurses, Mary and Shantae, were regular visitors to the house. The Nakib, the social worker as well. And they just provided the kind of support that I think is at the core of what Mary was trying to do in organizing healthcare professionals. It just, it's really important way to make sure that we applaud their work. Mary. This gathering isn't meant as a formal service, but it's something in Mary's spirit. It's rooted in community. It's shaped by art and by music. We need to be honest about our grief, but insistent about our joy. So I hope you feel encouraged not just to listen, but to remember, to laugh, and to share your own stories, Mary, with each other as the day goes on. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you for walking, Mary. And thank you for standing with us today. Please stay. There's pastries from Ovenberg. And it's like a good Baltimore institution. It's what we do here. We support each other in our community. Thank you. Awesome.
Be patient toward all that is unsolved. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves. Like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek answers which cannot be given you, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer.
Piece of Wild Things by Linda Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the middle of the night at the least sound, fear my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and full.
Me too, I'm gonna read. Well, you got yours. So, and Gracie, when I look at you, because you smile really big, that will help me get through this. There are people who are born with an ability to see all that is beautiful in this world. And there was one person. She saw the beauty everywhere and in everyone. She saw the good, and she saw the positive, and I believe it was this mini superpower that really brought happiness to her. Not just in art, or music, or good food, or an excellent bottle of wine, which she loved, I along with her, but really in people and in everyday. And Gracie as well. She used to take them to the ducks at the pond in this very, and along the way, she would show them little things, a beautiful flower, the changing color of the leaves, color of the sky. And that was the way of having her show them that there's beauty everywhere, all around. So I think this is what has to be with us. And she also reflected that beauty right back at that world with her big, beautiful smile. Her smile lit up the room. It also highlighted those, and it made her eyes into these little windows that reflected the beauty inside right back at us. It was also contagious. And I'm sure every single one of you today felt the warmth that emanated, gave you that smile. She also had an insatiable hunger to learn. And I'm guessing that would be academic in her, because she just loved to read everything that she could get her hands on. And even in the end, she held on and tried to absorb, I think, through osmosis, what the New York Times could impart to her. She would save the style section for me every once in a while and highlight a beautiful shoe or a beautiful dress or a trip, and she knew that I would love that. Talking with Mary, and better yet, listening to her, was like an education to me. with a knowledge base, not only all she learned and all she read, but what she experienced in her life, shaped my own beliefs, understandings of life, and reinforced some of my own values. Her dedication to social justice and equality deeply connected with my own professional calling and my own experiences, that although we're vastly different from hers and her own, we shared a common understanding and support. And it was that openness that fueled her ability to find wonder in the world. And it's what made her words so rich with wisdom. Ultimately, I think that's part of her legacy. I've been thinking a lot lately about what legacy means. And I've concluded that legacy isn't only what someone is able to leave behind, the things they accomplished, or which Mary accomplished, but the way they shape the people around them. The impact that Mary had on people's lives is well represented here today, and online to those who are looking. You're here, I know, because she touched you in some way, big or small. And that is something that we all need, all hope, push in our own time. I love you, Mary.
So I'm here because Nana Mary passed away. So I wanted to share three memories that first one was feeding the ducks, like Mom said, at the pond. And then the next one we spray painting like on the sidewalk, like spray painting under the names. And the last one is going to duck for Thanksgiving, and the day before Thanksgiving, you got donuts for breakfast. Those were the best moments of my life. I miss you.
We're gonna follow. Yeah, I honestly, I don't want to follow it. I do know that like there are days where you realize you're more like your father than you think, right? And today's one of those because I also like to riff. I'm sort of here now, but I'm also going to about the 2 years that you sort of need them to save you. I had the distinct honor of introducing the photo montage, which he has not seen yet, and actually nobody's seen because it was an impossible task. But for those who knew Mary, two of her greatest loves were music and photography. She was a photographer. She at one point had converted their basement down the street into a darkroom. And if you go to the house, there's still pictures she took that are displayed probably throughout the house. This impossible task was not just because I had to find some sort of balance in what pictures are showing, what pictures are not showing, but first it was all shoot, right? Like as soon as they passed, Lauren and Katya snapped to and went into their phones and created a album of 1,000 pictures. And like nobody right? Like some of them were great, some of them were not. But like they're all digital for a woman who had a true affinity for people. right? And so a photographer and her, you probably. Live photo pictures. But like, you know, the montage, it turned into a bit of a collection of greatest hits, which for a lover of albums is sacrilege. At the very least, Mary deserved an anthology, right? But for the lovers of long form, like we will show you the long form version of this. You want. Make time for it. What you're gonna see are the ways in which I and we choose to remain as a young girl, a woman, an activist, a grandmother. She's someone who's as comfortable at the Monterey Jazz Festival as she was at M&T Bank Stadium. Jazz Fest, the Outer Banks, Lucas Isaac and Gracie, and of course, all things Baltimore are featured throughout. I will miss Mary immensely. We had radically divergent views on politics, and I learned to observe sort of strictly enforced detente when it came to our political views. But this opened up other doors for us, right? Where I learned from both her and my dad things like the Left Bank Jazz Society, unique filmmaking of Jim Garnish, and poems like the one I read earlier. But Mary's versatility is a theme today, right? And the same person who would make me watch awful Jim Garnish movie sat next to me for 3 hours and watched Some Kind of Monster, which for those who don't know, probably none of you just know, is a 3-hour documentary on Patella. But we went up to Aberdeen and stood in a monsoon and watched Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan, right? Yeah, Jazz Fest. We went to Jazz Fest together. But and countless Oreos and Rays. She was as comfortable talking about books like out there and Never Was Met You as she was about how the horrific effects of lying from the bed. And I will know since she passed, Penn State 0-2, the Ravens 0-2, like her. You know, I will miss her. I will miss her, and I will know she probably split her ballot a time or two, but we'll let her to rave. Common cause over cocktails and wine, watching her immerse herself in Lucas and Isaac, and the clear love she shared from my father is how I am going to miss you. Love you.
Keep me in your heart for a while. Just me, I love you anyway. Keep me in your heart for a while. When you get up in the morning, you see the crazy sun. Keep me in your heart for a while. There's a train leaving nightly call when all is said and done. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sometimes when you're doing simple things around the house, maybe you think of me and smile. And all time, buttons on your blouse, keep me in your heart for a while. Pull me in your thoughts, take me to your dreams, touch me as I'm falling with you. When the winter comes, keep the fires lit, and I'm going to die. right next to you. Engine drivers headed north to Pleasant Street. Keep me in your heart for a while. These wheels keep turning, but they're running out of steam. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. Keep me in your heart for a while. Keep me in your heart for a while.
My name is Anna Tooby. I am a retired resident of a statewide union, which is both of professionals, allied employees, and former AFP vice presidents. And our community was one of the first ones to join AFP here. And the others beat me to financial very first, but I never generally admit that. But it was a new organization, not that large, but we were all dedicated to finding a professional organization that could help us do our work as a union representing nurses and really making a difference in healthcare. So started as a committee and then we grew into a division. Candace worked a little bit on the national level, and then she was at a conference, we were reading in the AFL-CIO, and we met Mary. Mary was working for the AFL-CIO, I guess in the policy department, and AFT was creating a policy position in the healthcare division. And Candace recruited her or advised her, whatever it was, we got her. We were very, very happy. We were thrilled. And because of that, our division really became a powerhouse in legislation, political and organizing achievements, well beyond our numbers, and we grew quite a lot. And it's not always due to one person, but Mary created the depth in our organization that we didn't have before. Everybody knows she was smart, but she just nailed it every time she spoke. She inspired me every time she spoke. She retired about 10 years ago. And then Candace and I retired a few years later. Not because of that, but we had a little bit sense in us. She was smart, funny, kind, and completely, extremely competent. So there's a couple of people I know who are online watching this, and I had asked some of the nurses who, part of ourselves the Solidarity Sisters, and she and one of them is Jennifer from Vermont, Jennifer Henry. I mean, Jennifer Henry is also a person that truly can fill a room by herself. She described the fact in 2010, there was an earthquake in Haiti. And she was the leader of the group in Vermont. She went to, I guess, the local people of AFT said she wanted to recruit volunteers. And they said, well, you don't need too much, no. And then she called Mary. And without hesitancy, they built a disaster relief team from the ground up. Nurses and healthcare workers had to get time off from work, which they did. And now Mary wasn't able to go to him, but she made sure that all the arrangements were made, and there were about 200 volunteers from Vermont that went. And they would go in groups of, I don't know how many, but there'd be like a new group every 2 weeks and overlapping with the other groups so that they were exchanging ideas. And they always described Mary as their rock. Another local president said, Mary just had those nursing vibes. And we always assumed Mary was a nurse. And we would be at dinner and we would share some of the most awful stories. And she acted like it was just like normal talk. But it included very graphic details, bodily fluids, and trauma events. But she was a strong woman, she got through it. And it wasn't really a test, but in some ways. What I have brought with me today is a audio. Mary was a keynote speaker in 2014 at my union's 40th anniversary. And I guess I was preparing for today because on my little phone, I recorded it. Okay, I'm not playing the whole thing. I could play it and you enjoy the whole thing, but I don't think time would allow it. But I'm gonna play a little bit of it. And the reason I want to play it is because Mary's passion, her brilliance, her intellect, and her dedication to others, to a cause, to making things better, comes through. But in addition, she was so ahead of the time. And you read, the fact that she had this thesis on healthcare, the organization of healthcare, before it got as bad as it did, which it is now. But she was there and she taught us all and she made our union great. And I don't want to say it. I mean, I think we are the best healthcare union. And it was because of her. So I'm going to play this. Just advice for you. My little Irish mother used to say when I was little, you can't smile and cry at the same time. I knew that wasn't true, but I used to go around grinning at the most inappropriate times. So you're going to take that advice. So let's see if this works.
Thing sent me on Facebook is the summary is research about nurses and burnout on Facebook about a month ago. They said half of nurses say they have insufficient time with patients. 96% say they are tired at the beginning of shifts before they even start. 43% said they've seen an increase in overtime, and 54% said they had excessive workloads. The article that detailed all this, that talked about all this, and burnout, and why burnout was bad, said, okay, so there's two things that nurses have to do. They have to learn stress management techniques, and they have to learn not to care. That's what they said. That's a reasonable thing for people to do, right? Learn not to care about it. And it's not just direct caregivers as well. I was in the hospital about 2 years ago for surgery, a very prestigious hospital in my hometown. Because they were like doing news all the time, and they've got, and they're a gala for this, and the CEO is making this amount of money, and it's, the high below people in the town are folks who work for this institution, and they're buying up other hospitals, they're moving into the Washington suburbs. When I was in the hospital, there were so few housekeeping staff that the place was filled. There was a dirty towel behind the door of my bathroom for 2 days. And I was too out of it to mention it. So you have, the richest most for people, and you have down here, what is actually being delivered, in terms of care. How much do they care about, when was the last time they were on a unit, right? Okay. Yeah. So what's the disconnect here? Why is there such a disconnect? Part of it is that they are so far away. They manage like with robot arms or something, they can actually see, what's going on. Even if they set targets for you and that kind of stuff, they don't actually know, they don't remember what it's like to be with. The second thing though, is that they're playing a different game than you are, They are playing football and you are playing baseball, okay? Because they're paid on a different basis than what you're paid, okay? You think that your goal is to deliver healthcare. And you think that the reason the institution exists is to deliver healthcare. From their perspective, it's to make a profit, okay? It's to keep the finances in order to make a profit. A year ago, the Kaiser Family Foundation did a study of CEO salaries. And they were all over the place. Some were like ridiculous and some were kind of reasonable. But they were trying to find out what was the basis on which bonuses were given. And incentive pay was given to CEOs. And first of all, trying to find the information because it's not exactly transparent how things are done. So trying to find the information. Secondly, they found that while somebody, the CEO of that dentist or whatever it is, could be saying, we are here to deliver high quality care, that's all we care about. If you look at his contract, his incentive pay came based on profits, or the profits going on. Okay, his incentive pay was based on the growth. So what he cares about, it's not a bad thing, he wants to stay alive, but he's working in a hospital to make money, and you're working to provide healthcare. And no wonder you're stressed in the system because you're trying to do two different things. If you want mentality actually lead us, what leads us to $3 trillion, way more than any other country in the world. And it's estimated that a third of that, or 750 billion with a B dollars, is wasted. Is spent on care that is not necessary, tests that are not necessary, care that is delivered in the most expensive setting so that somebody can make a profit, and making money on end-of-life care as well. Some of you, if you went to the convention, you saw a woman named Shannon Brownlee, who was an author of a book called Overtreated, Why Too Much Medical Treatment is, I forget what the rest of it is, it's making us sicker and poorer. She talked about her mother, who was like 92 years old, had congestive heart failure, on kind of a downward trajectory. Obviously, she was not going to die tomorrow, but she was also not going to live for more than a year. So she's kind of on a downward trajectory. She calls her daughter up and says, guess what? The doctor has ordered a mammogram and a colonoscopy. I mean, Shannon said, what would they do if they found cancer? Well, why are you having a colonoscopy? What would they do if they found something? They're gonna do surgery on a 92-year-old woman with congestive heart failure. So what was the purpose of ordering that test? We have allies, we have potential allies. We have physicians who are discouraged. We have more information coming out about what's going on. We have patients that have become suspicious. This is a moment, okay? This is a moment when things are kind of in motion. And it started with the ACA. Our former organizing director, Gary Stevens, said to me one time, there's minutes, there's times when people are in motion. And that's when they're dissatisfied, they're ready to make a change. And that's when you can move things, okay? You get started, there's a moment that you take advantage of when things are in motion. Here is a moment, we are beginning a moment when things are in motion in terms of the healthcare system. We need to take advantage of that moment. We need to build the power to take advantage of that moment. Because the older I get also, the simpler some things become. And I think the simplest message to me is that everything depends on power. Hospitals have power, other folks have power, insurance companies have power. It's up to patients, consumers to come together and have power. So
That was probably a little longer. So you get a better sense of Mary in her work program. She's brilliant, compassionate, articulate, and we were very proud she was ours. She was our leader. So I speak for my colleagues, and there's many of them, some here, and some who are watching. Mary was and is a forever friend. I want to acknowledge that all of her dedicated professional work was rewarded. And the real reward in Mary's life is her husband and her children and her grandchildren. Mary was our forever friend, and Rich, we will become yours.
My name is Mark Parker. I have the privilege of serving as pastor of Breath of God Lutheran Church in Highlandstown for the last 16 years. And the last 13 of those having the privilege of serving as Mary's pastor, or one of Mary's pastors in any event. It was almost exactly 13 years ago that Mary walked in the door of Breath of God Lutheran Church on a Sunday morning. And as she did most of the places that I experienced her, she walked in with a specific purpose in mind. And as serious as her, she walked in because the late, dearly loved and departed Baltimore Guide, the Southeast Baltimore Guide, a local paper, had published a letter to the editor, op-ed, encouraging people to vote in favor of what was on the ballot that first Tuesday of November in Maryland, which was same-sex marriage. And our church had spent about 9 months talking and praying and discussing it, and had voted internally to our church to approve same-sex marriage in our congregation. And so then I had written a letter to our neighbors, published in the paper, encouraging them to vote for it as well, from a Christian perspective as well as a human perspective. And so Mary read that, and the next Sunday she was at church, which was unexpected and delightful. And it was especially helpful because there was thankfully in our case there was one person who was deliberately not at church that Sunday. And that was a beautiful, holy thing, and deep conversation and mutual respect on all sides. And he left with a heavy heart, and I bid him farewell with a heavy heart. And so Mary's coming was unexpected and a bit of joy in the midst of a farewell and a welcoming. That she wound up in several years later having the same leadership role that he did on the church was just an interesting coincidence as well. But I experienced Mary on that first day showing up with a seriousness of purpose, with a fullness of spirit, with an expectation of finding and creating joy wherever she happened to be, and with an openness to learn, to experience, and to be in relationship with people of all different backgrounds and kinds. And that was true in really serious things and really serious moments. And that was true. When I say serious of purpose, I don't mean hyper serious all the time. What I mean was that there was intentionality to where she showed up and why. She was in the right place at the right time, both I think in a spiritual sense, but also for her, that she had agency. I experienced at her as having deep agency over her life, of how she spent her time and energy and love with family, with friends, here in the park, with church, in her professional life. By the time I met her, she had, maybe throughout her whole life, but certainly by the time I met her, she was exactly where she wanted to be, doing what she wanted to do, for her own self, but for the good of the world and for the good of others, right? Of sharing that joy in that place. And so I saw that in church on Sundays. I certainly saw that with Ravens and Orioles games. Consuelo Correa started a Zumba group, and we were hosting them in our gym. So Mary came along to Zumba, right? And I had pictures and video of her there. But then I say she was open to relationship. Several of those people became good friends of hers. And then that group gathered here at Friends of Patterson Park. I see Joyce is here and others. A group of, and I saw Aida this morning. I don't see her right now, but I saw Aida in the park this morning. a group of women of different racial and ethnic backgrounds who share this community together and wanted to listen and learn and be connected, not for a particular purpose, but because community and relationship is a deeply holy and powerful and moving thing. And so Mary did that. So I'm grateful, right, that she's in the right place at the right time, serious with purpose, openness to relationship, filled with the Spirit, and with an expectation of joy where she went. I also say I found Mary to be very mature, and that's not a comment on age. I think we use that as as this weird catch-all for a certain number of years of life that have passed. I found Mary to be mature in a wonderfully challenging and intimidating way. And I say that as somebody who 13 years ago was a younger pastor than I am now, and a younger human being. But Mary, from my perspective, knew who she was in a confident, because she earned it, right? She accomplished many things and learned so much and gone through life, and so she knew who she was in relation to God. She knew who she was in relation to her neighborhood and community. She knew who she was in terms of her professional life and personal life. I think all of us are on a journey of figuring that out, but encountering Mary and being like, that's somebody who has a sense of who they are and a peace about who they are and a confidence that carries them through all kinds of circumstances and situations, from the biggest to the smallest. And then I watched her put that in practice, certainly in all the ways that we've talked about here, but in particular in our church, especially, and a really strong sense of right and wrong, a really strong sense of justice. Rooted in her faith and rooted in her experience. So especially in the years 2016 to 2020 in the first Trump administration, having Mary's leadership, clear sense of right and wrong, maturity and sense of purposefulness in our church community helped us better respond. To show up with our neighbors, to show up alongside Mary, the places where we need to be, alongside immigrant neighbors, alongside queer neighbors, alongside women, alongside young people marching and calling out for an end to gun violence. And so she helped to make that happen, to encourage us, to guide us there, to help us be the church that we knew we ought to be, and the Christians, disciples of Jesus that we ought to be. Her example and her leadership and her organizing and her clear sense of what was right and wrong helped us to do that better and helped us become the church and become the people that we all wanted to be. So I'm deeply grateful. I'm deeply grateful to have known her. The last thing I'll say is, and this is on the city council side. So I ran for city council in 2016. It did not win. I like to say I finished a close fourth. Close fourth. But when you sit down and do something brand new that I had no experience with whatsoever, right? Certainly running for office. So when you sit down and do something brand new, you're like, who are the people that I really need around me who can help me try to pull off something this wild and crazy and to learn quickly and rapidly. And Mary was there from day one. It's like Mary, and I was really careful. I didn't seek out folks. I was trying to have a good line between church and that work. But Mary was the exception. So I was like, Mary, I really need some help. I don't know what I'm doing, but you know how to organize people. You know how all of this works. You have a deep understanding of how organizing people leads to power, leads to accomplishing things, getting things done. Will you help me? And so she was the organizing force behind all of that effort, all the mailings we did, and door knockings and everything else. And so consistently, whether as a pastor, a younger pastor, as a leader in community, as somebody trying this new thing of entering into the public sphere, which Mary inhabited so well and so effectively. So incredibly grateful for everything that I learned from Mary, all the ways that she helped me, all the ways that she demonstrated for me what a mature adult person is and what a mature and adult Christian is and can be. And so on behalf of myself, on behalf of our church, thank you, Mary, and thank you, family, for sharing her so well and so long with us.
What is it?
Thanks. Please stay. There's pastries and coffees, and the park is beautiful. Mary would be giving with me if I didn't say, please stay and enjoy the park. thank you again for being here. Thank you for loving Mary so much. Henry, I forgot to thank you at the beginning, and thank you for your help with stuff today as well. Please take the time to share your stories and enjoy everything of it, because that's what Mary. Again, thank you. That's mostly over.